Hi Interform friends. Welcome to tutorial. In this video, learn IntelObra basics, use its AutoCAD plugin, and manage projects from your phone. Don't have IntelObra? Download it now from our official site, www.intelform2.com today. Once installed, open AutoCAD. You'll find IntelObra command in Add-ins tab here. You can also type IntelObra at command line here. IntelObra transforms how you program and manage projects today using object-oriented AutoCAD coding fast. Main advantage: users can physically see what they're programming. It's not just listing in table start/end days. Like usual project schedules, select real items in the drawing to build. Assign dates, resources, descriptions, status, and progress, then track them through entire project execution. This makes IntelObra a powerful tool, directly linking plans to construction scheduling. To clarify, a real example now. Here's the floor plan. Let's say this grate, which is the one we see in the photo, is in bad shape. Similarly, the pavement around it is damaged and will be fully rebuilt. The grate, paved area, curbs, and this vertical sign. So let's schedule this job and explain the plugin at the same time. We'll run the IntelObra command. First, we'll see the main panel, our control hub here. Up top, change plugin language. Now only English and Spanish available. Center shows project activity table. It's empty there until activities are created. Bottom buttons manage the project. Left panel lets you create, delete, sort, clear, group, and ungroup activities. For this example, I set 7 tasks to track in my notes here. Demolition, excavation, culvert work, subbase installation, paving, curb building, and signage installation. As we've mentioned, IntelObra is based on an object-oriented programming approach in AutoCAD. For this reason, the first step is to properly prepare the AutoCAD plan. The drawing must contain the objects you want to schedule. The plugin detects points, lines, polylines, and hatches, so organize them right to match actual tasks. Ideally, work from a clean, well-structured plan where each object matches a real element. A well-organized drawing makes project planning, tracking, and control much easier overall. Let's map project structures with points, lines, polylines, and hatches. We'll represent the sewer or grate with a hatch. Large projects can use points, but here we'll shade it instead, like this. We'll also represent the pavement with hatches. For large areas, subdivide a single activity into several objects by segments, crews, sectors, phases, and so on, etc. In this case, we'll divide the pavement into 3 areas, represented by 3 hatches. We'll represent the curbs with simple polylines, adjusted to their actual geometry. Finally, single element. We'll mark the traffic sign with a dot. Now that we have our objects in the drawing, we can create the activities in our schedule. In IntelObra, press Add Activity button. First task, demolish and dismantle structures. Enter name, but assign no group since none exist yet. Here we set its object type, points, lines, polylines, or hatches. Also specify what IntelObra measures. If activity uses points, then the plugin counts them. If it's represented by lines, You can measure lengths. In the case of polylines, it can measure both lengths and areas. And if we use hatches, it'll measure areas. Here we'll demolish the existing grate and pavement. Choose hatches as object type and area control. Since the drawing is in meters, the corresponding unit will be square meters. It's important to understand that this is the unit of the drawing. We shouldn't confuse this unit with the activities payment unit in the budget. For example, the demolition might be budgeted in cubic meters, but since IntelObra works with 2D AutoCAD objects, the measurements are taken using only the geometric properties of those 2D objects. So the unit shown here refers only to the control object's property, total area in square meters of marked demolition shading. Finally, set performance. Field is optional. Here we can specify how many square meters this activity can cover in a workday. For this example, we'll use an output of 300 meters squared per day, assuming the demolition will be done mechanically. Continuing. Second, grade excavation. Shown hatched. Measure the area. Drawing units are square meters. Productivity set at 150 meters squared/day. Next. Third, build a culvert with grates. Hatched. Measure the area. Units are square meters. Set productivity at 5 meters squared per day here. Continue. Fourth, subbase installation. Hatched. Measure area in square meters. Productivity is 100 meters squared per day for this task. Continue. Fifth, concrete pavement shown with hatching. Measure area in square meters. Productivity is 50 meters squared per day for this work. Continue. Sixth, build curbs in place. As polylines. Measure length. Units in meters. Productivity 50 meters per day. Continuing. Item 7. Supply and install vertical signage. Count the dots. Unit is each. Production rate. 5 signs per day. Alright. Once the activities are created, they'll show up in the main table. Great. All our project activities are created. Reorder them easily with the up and down buttons to change their project sequence. We can also group activities to stay better organized. For example, we'll select these activities, click on Group, and name the group Pavement. We'll group the remaining activities under the name Others. Using groups is totally optional and is meant to make organizing the project easier. In IntelObra, groups only work as visual labels. They don't change the schedule or how the activities behave. Here we have just 7 activities, so differences aren't obvious. However, in projects with hundreds of tasks, grouping helps you find and manage information faster, more neatly. If at any point you want to delete a group, just select it and click Ungroup. The activities will remain intact. Only the grouping will be removed. Also, double-click any activity anytime to edit it. Change its name, group, unit, and performance whenever you need to. Alright. Let's go over the main table. The first column is for the activity name. Then we list unit, planned amount, executed amount. Now, all values show 0, because though activities are defined, we haven't assigned their drawing objects yet. Assign items to activity. Here or main table. Click Enter in Scheduling column. In this case, we'll enter the objects for the demolition and dismantling of structures activity. Click Enter. Then, command line shows Add, Remove, Edit options. To add new objects, choose the Add option. AutoCAD now asks, select Hatch objects for demolition work, or press Enter to finish. Let's select, for example, this hatch at the top and press Enter. The scheduling form will open right away. Here we'll set the start and end dates for this object. We also see a theoretical duration, which is the result of dividing the total area of the selected objects by the output defined for the activity. That's why I said earlier performance, though optional, is very useful as a guide to estimate runtime when coding. Here, calculations say it can run in under a day. So we'll schedule it for July 20th, starting and ending day. Further down, we find the duration, which is just the difference between the start and end dates we just set. We can also write a description, if we think it's necessary. For example, road connection. Finally, we reach threads, letting us link different objects and activities together. But for now, we'll leave it empty and explain it later. Once we have several objects scheduled, we'll click OK. Perfect. We now have our first object scheduled for July 20th. While we are in the Assign Objects function, all the items that have already been scheduled are highlighted in red. This lets us easily identify which objects are still pending to be scheduled. Now we'll press Escape twice to exit Assign Objects. Note in the main table a scheduled item appears. Scheduled quantity reads 115.6. That number matches the shaded area we set. Open Object Properties in AutoCAD. Area is 115.6 meters squared, proving IntelObra reads it straight from the original drawing file. If we open the Gantt chart now, we'll also see the object scheduled for July 20th. As you can see, all data stays synced across the plan, main table, Gantt chart, and AutoCAD properties. Let's assign objects again. From here, we can add several more. For example, adding these two objects at the same time, we can edit assigned items, change dates, descriptions, and more. And we can also remove any object assigned to the activity. Alright, now let's schedule the rest of the demolition for good. Assume these three areas get demolished July 20th. Select them, set the date, and confirm. Let's continue with the culvert construction activity. We enter the corresponding object, select the culvert's hatch, and schedule it from July 21st to the 25th, completing the 5 days suggested by the theoretical performance. If we go back to the Gantt chart, we'll immediately see the objects we just scheduled. Note, from the Gantt chart you can open Assign Objects directly in scheduling mode. Click the activity name. It's the same as pressing Enter in the panel's scheduling column. From now on, we'll keep working directly from the Gantt chart. Now, let's schedule the excavation from July 27th to the 28th. As you can see, working in Gantt helps track the schedule sequence. Since a visual calendar reference shows all objects and activities, it's important to clarify that scheduling from the main panel or from the Gantt chart is exactly the same thing. Let's continue. Let's schedule the sub-base installation from July 29th to the 30th. Now we move to pavement construction. It takes longer, so we schedule areas sequentially, not 3 together. Let's schedule the first area from July 31st to August 1st. The second one from August 3rd to the 4th. And the third one from August 5th to the 6th. Now, the Gantt clearly shows 3 separate bars, one per pavement area. You may notice earlier activities show 1 bar, though we programmed 3 objects. The reason is very simple. The 3 objects were scheduled for the exact same dates, so the bars are completely overlapping. If we click on this bar, IntelObra will detect that there are several objects in the same position and will show a list so we can select which one we want to edit. If the Edit Multiple option is enabled, clicking on overlapping bars will edit all the objects located in that position. If disabled, each click edits only one object, the one chosen. Finally, let's schedule the curb construction from August 7th to the 8th. And the installation of the stop sign for August 8th. Perfect. That finishes the project's initial setup. Now let's briefly explain the work thread concept we left for later. Edit any scheduled item. Create threads. Learn how they work. Threads tie objects and help link items. We can group objects or tasks by crews, sections, sectors, phases. Here we can create threads. Thread 1, Thread 2, Thread 3. These threads are in general. We can add more categories. Categories only organize threads, keeping order. They just group threads together here. From here, we can also delete the threads we've created. So keep just 2 threads linking crew flow. Now assume we have 2 crews. So let's create the thread that will represent crew A and the thread that will represent crew B. Threads connect different objects and activities together. For example, let's say the crew will handle this section of pavement, building the culvert, and building the curbs. Crew B will do this pavement section and install the stop sign. So we place the objects in their respective threads, like this. If we open the Gantt chart now, we'll see the threads are available. From here, we can filter the view by threads and manage and track the activities related to a specific thread. Work threads are especially useful when rescheduling, since they let you select and move all the objects belonging to the same concept at the same time. This makes it easier to update the schedule when you only need to modify a specific part of the project. Now that we understand this, let's continue with tracking the schedule. We've programmed our objects. Now let's manage how that runs. To track progress, IntelObra lets you mark scheduled items as done and assign completion percentages. This is done from the execution column. For example, if we click the Enter button for the demolition activity, like in code, the drawing highlights objects by state. Scheduled objects will appear in red, those in progress will appear in yellow, and those that are already fully executed will be shown in green. Here, Add, Remove, Edit options for Run objects. Choose Add Now. Now, select this object and press Enter. The execution form will open, where we'll log the information for that object's actual progress. Here, we can indicate when the execution of the object started and finished. Suppose demolition began July 20th as planned, but couldn't finish that day because of delays. It ultimately ended July 21st. We can also write a description, if needed. Next, we have the most important field in this form, the percentage of progress. By default, opening the form sets this field to 100%, fully executed. However, we can log any percentage of progress. Finally, the Work Threads section also shows up. And there's also a new section on the right where we can manage the resources used during its execution. Resource management comes later. For now it's empty. No resources assigned to this activity. Click Accept. The object's status updates instantly, showing it's done. Now press Escape twice to exit here. In the main table, we see executed quantities for the activity, reflecting recorded progress. Likewise, the Gantt chart shows green execution bars, so we can compare plan versus actual site progress. You can also log the execution directly from the Gantt chart. To do that, let's switch to execution mode and click on the scheduled bars where we want to log the execution, like this. However, as a recommendation, it's better to log the execution from the main table, since there you have a better visual aid to see which objects have already been executed and which are still pending. Perfect. We now know the basics of how IntelObra works, how to create a schedule, and how to log our project's execution progress. Now let's continue with the other features of the plugin. Once we've entered the scheduling and execution information, we can calculate the project for a specific cutoff date. Running this calculation, IntelObra auto-updates project indicators and fills the % complete, compliance, and status columns, giving a first look at each activity and project performance versus the set schedule. Also, in View column, you can see details for each activity object. Example: click View for demolition and dismantling. Objects appear highlighted in the drawing based on progress status. Click any scheduled item, and a window opens showing its info. Here you can check out the object's ID, the quantity, start and end dates, the work threads it belongs to, the logged execution information, associated resources, and various tracking indicators that let us see how that object is behaving compared to the established schedule. So this window shows object info only for reference. To exit this view mode, just click the Finish button. The last column in the main table is for resource assignment. With IntelObra, you can manage nearly any resource: materials, labor, equipment, machinery, cache, more. To manage resources, click Resources button at bottom of main panel. Create, delete, group, or ungroup resources here. Add some for this example. Let's click New. The first resource will be cement. The unit will be bags. For the initial quantity, let's say we have 1,000 bags. For the format, we'll select Number. We'll keep Detect Overload off, since it's pointless for materials to check simultaneous use across tasks. It's meant for labor, machines, or equipment that can't be in two places at once. Accept. Resource is created. Now create more resources. Sand, M, starting at 0. General format. And crushed stone, M, starting at 0. General. Create a resource called Crew01. Unit pesos, starting amount 0. Currency format. And enable Detect Overload in this case. Use settings to set up. Example: if Crew01 is Juan and Pedro, it can't do 2 tasks. In that case, it's a good idea to activate overload detection so IntelObra can warn us when there's a scheduling conflict. Perfect. Resources already appear in the table. Here we check name, unit, estimated/used amounts, logged income, available balance. Estimated and actual amounts are calculated once resources are assigned to activities. In this form, create resources and log inventory moves. For example, let's click Enter on the cement resource. Let's say 500 bags are brought into the warehouse on July 30th. Add a description, like an Argos cement intake. Likewise, we'll record receipt of 50 cubic meters of sand, 50 of crushed aggregate, and finally 5 million to pay Crew 01. Thus we easily track all resource inputs during project execution. Now that resources exist, assign them to the activities. Close resources and assign them to pavement construction for this example. Click Set. This form opens. Click Assign. Left panel lists all available resources for this project. Start by assigning cement now. On the right panel, set quantity manual or auto-calculated. If left on manual, it won't estimate resources per object. Choose automatic calculation instead. Here we set IntelObra's formula to estimate resource use. Here, take the control amount, the area, and multiply by a factor. Assume each square meter of paving needs 1.8 cement bags. OK. Accept. Now assign the sand. We'll use auto calculation. Assume each M2 needs 0.18 m sand. Accept it now. For the crushed stone, this time we'll select manual quantity so we can see the difference from the automatic calculation. Finally, assign Crew 01 resource. Here we use AutoCalc. The formula won't use area. Instead, total activity length in days. Let's say the cost per day for this crew is 250,000. We'll click Accept. It's that easy to assign resources to an activity. Let's assign resources to. For curb building, we'll assign cement, assuming use of 12.25 bags per linear meter. Leave sand on manual so it won't calculate. Same for crushing. For Crew 01, instead of by days, we'll estimate directly by quantity. Let's say it costs 15,000 for each linear meter of curb built. Perfect. Now the activities have their resources assigned. But if we go to the resource report, I still don't see any consumption logged. Let's log those resource usages. As mentioned, manage them in the execution window. For pavement construction execution, for example, we select this top object here. In the execution form, we see resources, now assigned to this activity. Top panel lists resources assigned to object. Bottom panel shows usage for the selected resource. For each assigned resource you see name, unit, object quantity, here 115.6 meters squared. Planned quantity, that times 1.8. The formula used, and the executed quantity, where we record total actual consumption for reporting and cost control later. For example, the plan estimated 208 cement bags, but during work we actually used 220 in total. Enter value in executed quantity. With automatic consumption mode, enter the total amount executed, and IntelObra allocates it proportionally across every day the activity ran. Choose manual mode. Log consumption day by day. Example. I'll log 2 days manually. July 31st used 100 cement bags. August 1st adds 120 more. We can also add notes for each day. For example, 2 bags left on site. Let's follow the same procedure for the other resources. For sand, we'll record 12 cubic meters July 31st and 10 cubic meters August 1st. For crushed, record 10 cubic meters day 1, 9 on day 2. Lastly, for Crew 01, record total use, 300,000. Accept changes. If we go back to the resources module now, we'll see that the consumed quantities have been updated. If we click Resource Report, IntelObra Auto creates a detailed log of daily inventory moves ins, outs, usage, remaining stock, and each resource is balanced through the full project run. Alright, now let's finish explaining the tools available in the Gantt chart. At the bottom, you'll find the Reschedule button, which lets you shift the timeline bars forward or backward on the calendar. Click Reschedule to open a form. Enter how many days to shift the selected schedule bars. We can enter positive values to move the selected objects to later dates, or negative values to move them up. We can also filter items to reschedule by activity, group, threads, scheduled or run items, post cutoff, or pending runs. All these filters can be combined to select exactly the objects we want to reschedule. In any case, the shift will only apply to the objects that are selected with these checkboxes. For example, reschedule the pavement group using scheduled items only, and move it back 7 days. We click OK, and you can see how all the selected bars automatically change their start and end dates, while keeping their original duration. We can also select the objects we want to reschedule directly from the Gantt chart. We click here on Select from Gantt. That way, we can select the objects we need with a selection box, or by holding down the Control key while clicking on the bars we want to add to the selection. After selecting objects, click OK. They appear in the filter. Enter how many days to shift them. Done. We know how to reschedule. Now, continue with Tracking button. Clicking opens a form listing project activities and all scheduled objects. Here, update completion %, edit/add descriptions, manage resources for each object, even without the drawing's reference. This tool helps you check overall project progress or rapidly update data on multiple items from one list. Okay, here's the Manage button. Open it. IntelObra shows a project control report. On the left are key project indicators: planned versus completed quantities, planned versus used resources, site notes, late tasks, notifications, and resource overloads when they occur overall. The essential metrics to judge project status at once. On the right, a projection of future activities. This shows the activities that are starting soon, along with the resources needed to carry them out and their associated indicators. We can also define the analysis period by changing the report's start date, the cut-off date, and the projection horizon. For example, set a 15-day forecast, and IntelObra auto-calculates planned tasks, estimates required resources, and helps us anticipate needs and schedule construction work on time to reduce delays and rework. Finally, we can save and load the project's program. At the bottom here, options: store IntelObra data. Save the project 2 ways: locally or on the portal. Start locally. In this mode, all programming stays in the WG file, so it travels with AutoCAD. Before using this option, save the WG file to your computer with AutoCAD's Save command. This ensures the drawing already exists physically, preventing possible problems later. Also note, IntelObra programming isn't auto-saved. When you save the AutoCAD drawing, to save scheduling, always click IntelObra's Save button. Click Save. The program confirms the data stored successfully now. Now let's close the drawing and open it again. We run IntelObra again and click on Load. You'll see that the whole schedule appears exactly as we left it. Info stays tied to the WG file, lowering risk of losing your work. Remember, the Load option always pulls saved data from the currently open drawing. So, if we want to work with another locally stored project, We first need to open the corresponding WG file and then use the Load button. Now, we can also save the information on the portal. This mode lets you save the project to your IntelObra account, so you can later access the information directly from the web portal, even using a tablet or a mobile phone. To use this option, you need an internet connection. We select Portal and click Save. IntelObra will ask for our account's username and password to confirm. We enter our credentials, and that's it. The information has been stored in our portal account. Now, let's move on to the IntelObra web portal. Access it from AutoCAD. Click this button to open the web portal, or use any browser on your computer, tablet, or phone to visit our official site www.intelform2.com. Click Portal here. Then, IntelObra. Log in with your username and password. In here, on the main screen, all the projects stored in our account appear. We select our project, open it, and see the Gantt schedule exactly as made in AutoCAD. As in AutoCAD, reschedule, tracking, resources, and manage tools are available and work almost identically. Also, the portal includes exclusive features that aren't available in AutoCAD. First, report generation lets you build an executive report with charts, KPIs, progress analysis details. We can print this report to present it to any entity. We can also print the Gantt chart. And we can also export the Gantt chart to Excel, making it easier to share information with the rest of the team and other entities. Of course, we can also update the schedule from the portal. By clicking on any bar in the Gantt chart, we can change its dates, update descriptions, and enter the completion percentage for each object. Left of activities are 4 buttons: View, Edit, and arrows to move up or down. If we click Edit, we can change the activity name, group, report unit, linked resources. Pause a moment on the report unit. It won't change what you programmed in AutoCAD. It only changes how data appears in reports. For instance, you may model areas in square meters, yet budget the task in cubic meters. Switch the unit to enter the total budgeted amount, say 63 cubic meters, and the portal allocates it across all programmed objects by their share. This way, the reports will use the same units as the budget, while AutoCAD will keep working with the object's geometric properties. From Window, you can assign and manage resources like AutoCAD, using manual amounts or auto formulas. From Resources, you can view the detailed inventory report, add or delete resources, and record stock and /out movements. Let's continue with the activity buttons. If we click the View button, the 2D viewer opens. This viewer shows AutoCAD geometry, letting us visually spot every programmed object instantly. Done items show in green, running show yellow, overdue show red, references show in gray. No references yet. Let's add them. They also come from AutoCAD here. Add them with the Add References button, so the portal viewer can show roads, homes, labels, axes, walls, or any other context layer. Select points, lines, polylines, hatches, texts. Once the references are added, save the project to the portal again. Now reopen the project and portal. References show in 2D. This eases each object's placement and helps interpret geometry in the 2D viewer better. Also click any object to view all details, scheduled dates, descriptions, linked resources, and its indicators, right here in this panel below. From this window, also log execution, update progress, set dates, add notes, and track resource use. Just like in AutoCAD, consumption can be logged automatically by just entering the total amount executed, or manually by logging the consumption for each day of work. Great! This way, you can visually track the schedule from any mobile device. It's important to make one key thing clear. The base schedule is always created in AutoCAD. The portal is mainly designed for tracking that schedule. From the portal, we can't create scheduled objects, manage and update those set in AutoCAD. However, the portal lets you create secondary activities. They rely on AutoCAD main activities and automatically inherit scheduling. This feature helps prevent creating too many activities in AutoCAD here. Example: in AutoCAD, we schedule key tasks: excavation, paving, curbs, sewers. Later, from the portal, we can add secondary tasks: staking, rebar supply/install, material transport, and other items. Let's create a secondary activity. For example, supplying and installing rebar. Specify its unit, like kilograms. Say the budget has 1,000 kilograms. Assign it to pavement, and add resources too. Here we assign labor with an automatic formula by days worked, at 50,000 per day. Save the activity. Now, click on Set to define the activities that your secondary activity will depend on. Rebar is installed whenever we pour concrete, so select pavement, curb, and culvert construction from the list. Let's apply the dependencies. Notice how the corresponding bars immediately show up on the Gantt chart. If we check the report, it lists rebar supply and installation whenever any of the main activities are scheduled or executed. The secondary activity will automatically reflect that information. It's important to clarify that these secondary activities only exist within the web portal. Even if you later load the project back into AutoCAD, only the main activities will show up, keeping the drawing clean and simple to manage. Whenever you edit the portal, a pending changes alert appears. To keep changes, click Save before leaving the page. Leaving the portal without saving loses all session changes. That's it. Tutorial complete now. I hope IntelObra's overall workflow is clear. As you saw, it transforms construction scheduling and management by linking the AutoCAD model directly to planning, tracking, and site control. Once you set the schedule in AutoCAD, you can monitor everything from any PC, tablet, or phone, with project data always synced. Thanks for watching this far. If you made it here, thank you. Subscribe, and leave any questions or suggestions in the comments. We'll reply soon.